Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to share my story with you. I think I've never talked about it on my English channel. Many people know me from language videos, especially those on language learning, history. For new friends to this channel, I'm Zoe, currently doing my PhD in sociology in Germany and in France. This year is actually my last year and I'm super stressed because of my thesis. That's why recently I don't upload very often. I speak 7 languages and I use 4 of them in my work. Now my 2 YouTube channels and 1 Bilibili channel for mainland China public have around 1 million followers. I can't believe 2 years have passed since I decided to start my YouTube journey. I feel so grateful for your support and love. I rarely talk about my background. Some strangers who watch my videos might guess I grew up abroad, perhaps from a diplomat's family. Some even think I've never worked a day in my life, saying I must be rich to learn so many languages and travel around. I get these kind of comments quite often. Although they always make me smile, I feel it's time to clear it up. Today, I will share with you how I grew up in a small town in China, went to college, worked for several years, quit my job, then went abroad, pursued a master, then a PhD, learned different languages, and now I'm a teacher at a university and also a content creator. The idea of making this video is to let you all know me better. If you like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I come from a small town in Guangxi province in China. Both my parents are ordinary government workers. They grew up in the era where not many people have attended university in China. I'm not from an intellectual family, nothing international. My parents can't even speak English. I'm the only child in the family. My grandmother and my parents take very good care of me. They cared about my education, but my family never really put much pressure on me to pursue perfect grade. Especially my mom, she was always there for me as I grew up. We are like friends and can talk about anything. Even now, while I'm abroad and busy, I still make sure to call my mom several times a week. I might not from a wealthy or intellectual family, but I certainly come from a happy and supportive one. This has given me a lot of confidence and the courage to dream and try different things. I feel very, very grateful for it. For university, I went to a regular college in Guangzhou. This university is renowned for its foreign language majors, but I filled out my major application with all the foreign languages at the top of my list, including English, French, German, Italian, and Japanese. Unfortunately, my scores weren't high enough, so I was rejected from these programs and ended up in a non-language major. I always dreamed of speaking foreign languages, and now I can't believe I've made that dream come true. After the intense pressure of the Gaokao, the tough college entrance exam in China, I spent most of my university life just letting loose, partying and hanging out with friends. At that time, I was quite lost. Like many Chinese students, after surviving the Gaokao, university life seemed to be just a step I needed to take in the predetermined path of life. Securing a good job, getting married, having kids, buying a house and a car, there were the standards of success in our society at the time. That was my vision of the world and of my future. What else was there? One thing I regret about my university years is not taking the time to study more, learn new languages, read more books, exercise more, and focus on self-development. However, this phase also made me appreciate this aspect more deeply later in life and helped clarify what I truly wanted. That's why when I returned to university for my master's degree, I deeply valued the opportunity to study and restart my life. It wasn't until my senior years of university when I first saw friends planning to study abroad for a master's degree that I started considering going overseas. Initially, I wanted to go to the US, like most Chinese students. I wanted to study communication and I was even preparing for all the necessary exams. Then I brought the idea to my mom. I remember we were making the budget to study for 2 to 3 years in the US. It was super expensive and beyond what my family's financial situation could handle. My mom was very supportive. She suggested selling our house and renting a smaller apartment to fund my education. I spent a sleepless night after talking to my mom. I was wrestling with the decision of whether to go abroad. The next day, I decided not to do it because I didn't want to make my family's life harder. After that, the idea of going abroad was put on hold. Looking back, it all came down to timing. Back then, I really didn't know what I wanted or why I wanted to go to the US. I only knew that others were going and I wanted to do as well. An experience abroad sounded fancy for a small-town girl getting a foreign diploma to boost my job prospects and possibly adding a fancy international touch to my resume in the future. That was all I knew about studying abroad. I was still quite lost. I was growing up in a school system where you just needed to follow the lessons and earn good grade. I had no idea about managing my life alone, which is very different from the state I would be in after a few years of a working experience. After graduation, I got a job at a big company in Shenzhen. The pay was quite well for a fresh graduate, but the job was really overwhelming. I barely had any personal time, and working late and on weekend was common. The company's culture was all about fight for the company, fight for yourself. Discussions between colleagues often centered around who achieved a certain position and bought their house and car within 5 years, who got a promotion and changed to a new BMW. You were expected to aim for that. What else? Looking back, I see how much that mindset was really brainwashing and damaging. I still remember how some competent senior managers were often praised for their sacrifices to the company, sacrificing time with their families and personal lives. I remember I saw one female manager who always seemed anxious and spoke to our subcontractors aggressively to assert her authority. Then my manager told me, "Zoe, you are too kind and gentle. If you want to manage a team in the future, you should learn from her." That's when I told myself, no, I don't want to be her. I don't want a life like that. So for those who say it looks like I've never worked, you really don't know what I have been through. Now I live and work between Germany and France. My French friends often joke that Germans work very hard. Then I say, compared to the Chinese, that's nothing. During the first 2 years of my career, I had serious neck and back pain issues. I got sick often due to the pressure, stress, and lack of exercise. I love reading, but I didn't even have time for that. I started thinking about changing and transforming my lifestyle. Eventually, I decided to switch jobs and found a position at a PR agency in Guangzhou, which was relatively more relaxed, though my salary was somehow lower. I just didn't want to sacrifice my health and life anymore. During this period, I developed the habit of morning swims and exercise to reduce my neck and back pain. I had time to pick up reading, and I also found time to cook for myself, even do pastry. Pastry was my passion. That explained why I was obsessed with France. The turning point came when my best friend and I decided to travel to Paris. It was just an idea. Then I said, yes, why not? Let's do it. Guys, you know what? I had never been abroad before that. I remember my first day in Paris. I had 400 euros on me that was stolen in the metro. I was so shocked and afraid. Paris. But it didn't stop me from falling in love with France. I know it sounds a bit contradictory, but I just didn't want this first negative experience to affect my mood to enjoy my vacation in this beautiful city. That trip to Paris was a cognitive shock for me, I would call it. I told you it was my first time abroad. In big cities in China, it feels like we spend most of our time on the road, rushing from point A to B, then to C. Everything is so hurried and purpose-driven. Your weekend activities often end up in a shopping mall. In contrast, Paris offered a different experience. Walking through Paris wasn't just physical movement, but a process of conversing with and exploring the city itself. Along the way, you discover many history buildings, cafes, patisseries, and perhaps even catch a sunset by La Seine, filled with many surprises. I was just so curious about everything. The funny part is that French people outside Paris often complain that Paris is super fast and busy, but for someone who has worked and lived in a big Chinese city, it's really slow and relaxing. Another aspect was the lifestyle. For the first time, I realized that people could live differently in many different ways. I remember sitting at the roadside cafe, just watching passers-by, observing their clothes, the way they talked, that they ate. I know these impressions of Paris might be biased because I was on vacation. It was my first time in Europe. I know both China and France have their good and bad aspect. This trip fundamentally ignited my curiosity and interest in another culture and society, which is why I wanted to study languages and sociology. I started to ask myself, what's the difference between these two societies? Why do people live like that, behave like that? I just wanted to learn more about it. After returning to Guangzhou, I started thinking about learning French. I signed up immediately for a weekend class at Alliance Française, thinking of it as a hobby for future travels to France. One day, I ran into an info session about studying in France after the lesson, and they happened to discuss the cost of studying there. France's education system is primarily public. The tuition was quite affordable compared to the US. I was saying, with the money I've saved from working and with my family's support, I could afford it. It was just about learning French. At the same time, I was also reading a lot about philosophy, sociology, and anthropology. Knowing that French academics have a good reputation in these fields, I then started gathering information from all sources about the application process in schools. I contacted the French universities and language schools, and I got accepted. Everything happened so quickly. Then I quit my job and moved to France. This meant starting everything from scratch in a new country. At the beginning, I faced many difficulties, like language barriers, finding a flat, being scammed. I had very low self-esteem because I couldn't understand what people were saying. I spoke broken French. I sounded stupid. I was questioning myself countless times about whether it was worth giving up everything. For someone who was speaking broken French at that time, this seemed so ambitious and unrealistic to do a PhD in sociology. Many people told me it was impossible to study social sciences in French after only 1 year of learning the language. It was too challenging for a non-francophone student. But at that time, I was very firm about the life I wanted. I wanted to fluently speak French and pursue a PhD, teach, be knowledgeable, and travel around the world. Looking back at myself now, becoming the person I once dreamed of, it feels truly amazing. That desire was so strong, it guided me to make many decisions. For example, soon after moving abroad, rather than hanging out with some other Chinese students who were just killing time playing mahjong and partying, I preferred to sacrifice these social activities to spend more time studying. I chose my circle of friends carefully, surrounding myself with positive and hardworking individuals. I was trying everything to improve my French. I listened to it all the time. When I realized my speaking skills were weak, I sought every opportunity to communicate with classmates or participate in various cultural activities to meet French people. Language was just the first challenge. My master's study period was particularly tough. I read very slowly. I was struggling to understand just a few pages of a book. I couldn't completely understand the lessons and found it hard to take notes. I was afraid to speak during the class because I feared making mistakes. I was afraid to take exams because I wrote slower than my French peers and made spelling and grammatical errors. Once I failed an exam, the only time, because I misunderstood the question for the essay and wrote something completely off topic, I asked myself, could I even pursue a PhD with this level of proficiency, or was I aiming too high? Sometimes I felt discouraged. I missed my family. I was crying under the shower while a voice murmured, "You can't even understand the lesson. You can't even pass a basic exam." But I always reminded myself that I had come this far and I needed to believe in my effort and consistency. If I couldn't understand the course, I recorded the lesson and listened to it repeatedly at home, making transcriptions until everything was clear. Although I read slowly, I could spend 10 times longer on a chapter than my French peers if necessary. And gradually, I began to read faster. Before exams, I would list all possible questions and practice writing several essays, carefully correcting them to avoid basic spelling and grammatical mistakes. These improvements didn't happen overnight. They were the result of years of effort. There's a saying, when you are a migrant and come to a new country where you don't speak the language, compared to your peers, you are like disabled. Handicapé, we say in French. I mean, you have to struggle more just to do normal things. I remember one professor who taught sociology of a religion, very strict. In France, the perfect score is 20, with 10 as passing. He was known for ruthlessly giving score of 0 or 1, causing many of fail his course. However, I managed to score the highest in our class with an 18. First, I loved this course, and he even approached me specifically to express his surprise that a non-native speaker could write such a quality essay. Although it was a small achievement, it truly was a highlight of my life. It felt like all my efforts were finally paying off. It wasn't about the grades, but I knew achieving high grades meant smoothly applying for PhD programs and scholarship, which could bring me closer to that dream. This experience really boosted my confidence. I recently stumbled upon some psychological concept that resonated deeply with my experiences, particularly the effect of stepping out of one's comfort zone to embrace new challenges. For me, this was learning French. Like, let's achieve a small goal of reaching an A1 level in French. First, when I made it, I created a positive feedback loop. This loop reinforced my confidence. Actually, I can do it. I proved to myself that I was capable of learning and it was never too late. I applied the same for Arabic learning. I had an idea like I'm interested in the question of the Arab community in France. That would be great if I can speak Arabic. The moment I got this idea, I searched directly if there are any Arabic lessons in my university. Then I met a very good teacher who has reinforced my interest, but everything starts from the first step. Psychologically, this process involves what is known as the stretch zone. It refers to a state or condition in which individuals are challenged just beyond their current level of competence, but still within reach of their capacities. By pushing myself into this zone, I was not just learning a new language, but also training my resilience and expanding my cognitive boundaries. Starting with learning French, I slowly developed a good study habit, which I then applied to my other studies. During this process, each success, no matter how small, convinced me further of my potential. Learning Arabic was incredibly challenging. Initially, I thought I could master it in 1 year just like I did with French, but it actually took me 3 years to have a proper level. After 1 year of learning, I was frustrated because I still couldn't hold a conversation, but I reminded myself of what I had been through while learning French. I told myself, you can do it, you can do it. I also learned to adapt myself. I understood more about the difficulties and the factors that influenced my progress. It's so important to keep motivating myself and not give up. Learning Arabic turned out to be one of the most beautiful decisions of my life. It opened up a completely new world. Throughout these experiences, I not only improved my language skills, but also developed a personal learning system, and I expanded them into my life. I applied it to learning other languages like German, Persian, and Turkish. I also use it while pursuing my PhD, teaching, making YouTube videos, working out, and acquiring a variety of new skills. There is one concept I like in psychology called growth mindset, developed by the Carol Dweck. It emphasizes that abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. I moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. This change was like shifting from a narrow perspective to a much broader one. Originally, I was held back by traditional beliefs and lived by conventional standards of success. These standards were like a net, limiting my thoughts and actions to a specific set of expectations. I believed that to be successful, I had to fit in these narrow definitions, but now I put more emphasis on the process of learning. I focus on what I learned and gained along the way. I'm not afraid to try and fail because I see failure as a normal process, a chance to grow. Adopting a growth mindset also means setting new personal goals and boundaries. It has helped me discover a lot of my potential. I never thought I would adapt so quickly to living abroad. I would travel alone in the Middle East. I could learn 3 languages simultaneously or be confident enough to share my story with many people on YouTube. This mindset helped me see that success and happiness can be defined in many ways. Through my travels and work, I met people from different countries and backgrounds. I saw the struggles of people in different societies, and the lives in different social classes. This gave me a glimpse into many different human conditions and lifestyles. As I share these stories, I realized there's so much more to tell. Please let me know in a comment which part of my journey you would like to hear more about. I don't see myself as particularly successful. Success means different things to different people. I also have my struggles, but I can say I like who I am now. I think it's important to be your own best friend and supporter. If you are feeling a bit lost, I hope my story can inspire you. If you are working towards your dreams, I hope my experiences can motivate you. If you like this video, remember to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next one. Bye!